Today's event was to recognize the work that our former leaders have done 20 years ago since 1992. And I want to stress this, just to recognize the good work, some of the good work that's gone on since 1992. At the same time, we realize that there's still a lot of work ahead of us, as Dwayne Johns from Aboriginal Affairs mentioned, that it could be another 25 years till all the acres allotted in the TLE process becomes reserve status.
Not an easy process. It's a complicated one, but I think with the relationships that have formed over 20 years between the First Nations, the FSIN, federal officials, and provincial officials, that we have a process that's quite unique. And while it's not working as quickly, perhaps, as some people would like, it's certainly historic and certainly unique to Saskatchewan.
The historical context of today is the fact that there was a relationship established between the federal and provincial government and First Nations leaders to resolve a treaty obligation that was set out in the treaties of the 1800s, and that relationship really evolved out of personalities of the federal and provincial ministers and the First Nations leaders at the time. It was at a time when Canada was going through some enormous constitutional crisis, not only with First Nations but also with provinces. It was also at that time we have to recognize that the economy turned down in the early 90s, and there was an agreement that a common interest regarding First Nations development in this part of the country was important, and that the cost of doing nothing was going to be too high. And secondly, the point that there was a recognition that the federal government did owe this obligation to First Nations people. And as Mulrooney said, if you owe something, you should pay for it. And so I'm very pleased that 20 years later, that set of wisdom stood, and that they were able to negotiate a deal that 20 years later, a new generation of First Nations and a new generation of Saskatchewan people are benefiting from.